They always said they couldn't afford to celebrate me while renting ballrooms for my sister. I said nothing until I bought a private lake house and posted, "Thanks for the motivation." Their jealous reactions were immediate and loud. The 10th anniversary of my birth slipped by, marked not by candles and icing, but by absence. "Money's tight, sweetie," my mother had murmured, and a decade-old me, still believing in boundless parental love, accepted it without question. Spaghetti, a Tuesday ritual, became my celebratory feast, topped by the simple concession of choosing our evening movie. I recall a strange, quiet gratitude swelling within me then, a child's innocent conviction that this meager offering was enough. My name is Rachel, and this, though I didn't realize it, was the first lesson in my unimportance. Just 3 months later, the stark contrast solidified. My sister, Vanessa, celebrated her 13th birthday. For her, the tight purse strings magically loosened. Our parents rented the entire downtown community center, a vibrant cacophony of a party teeming with what felt like half the middle school. A professional DJ spun tracks beneath soaring balloon arches, resplendent in silver and purple. The dessert table, an edible landscape of sugary dreams, could have graced the pages of any glossy magazine, crowned by a custom, 3-tiered cake, a confectionery monument to her milestone. I, a silent sentinel, hugged the perimeter in a serviceable dress from Target, an outfit my mother had chosen with an almost dismissive hand. My gaze was fixed on Vanessa, radiant, posing effortlessly for the hired photographer, while her father, beaming, settled the bill. "This is a milestone birthday," Mom explained, catching my expression, which must have been a child's clumsy attempt at concealing hurt. 13 is special. You'll understand when you're older." I understood then, more than she knew. 3 years later, just months before my own 13th, Vanessa turned 16. Milestone indeed. Our parents reserved a ballroom. I'm not exaggerating. A legitimate ballroom at the prestigious Riverside Hotel. Crystal chandeliers dripped from the high ceilings, their light reflecting in gilt-edged mirrors that adorned the walls. A live band, not just a DJ, played. A professional photographer shadowed Vanessa, capturing every manufactured moment of her surprise and delight. Her then-boyfriend, absurdly handsome, arrived in a rented tuxedo. And then, the piece de resistance, a surprise appearance by some local influencer. I watched, a quiet observer, as my sister cried actual tears of joy. I was 12, relegated to the wall, once again in a discount dress, awkwardly balancing a plate of hors d'oeuvres I couldn't even pronounce. One of Vanessa's friends, mistaking my quiet presence for subservience, asked if I was the help. "No," I replied, my voice a thin thread, "I'm the sister." Her ensuing confusion, the way she struggled to reconcile the girl in the cheap dress with the elaborate spectacle unfolding around us, was a wound that lingered. A few months after Vanessa's lavish Sweet 16, my own 13th birthday arrived. We went to Olive Garden. Just the 4 of us. My father spent the entire meal grumbling about the meager breadstick portions. Vanessa, oblivious, texted under the table. My mother, restless, repeatedly checked her watch, reminded of an early yoga class the next morning. The waiter, sensing the flat energy, brought out a single slice of cheesecake, adorned with a lonely candle. My family sang, their voices echoing half-heartedly as other diners stared. I blew out the candle, my silent wish a desperate plea to be anywhere but there. My 16th birthday fell on a Wednesday. Mom made pot roast. We ate in front of the television because a game my dad wanted to watch was on. A car? The thought was a phantom. Nobody mentioned it, though Vanessa had received a used Honda Civic for her 16th, gleaming under a giant red bow, her reaction professionally documented. I didn't even get my driver's license that year. No one had time to drive me to the DMV, and driver's ed, apparently, was a luxury we couldn't afford. Senior prom. I was 17. Marcus from calculus, a sweet, earnest boy, had asked me. My mother's directive was swift and firm. Dress budget, Rachel, $200 maximum. I scoured department stores, finally finding an acceptable blue dress on clearance for $90. Simple, it fit well enough. Vanessa, of course, had commissioned a custom gown for her prom, a seamstress crafting every bead, every stitch, designed specifically for her body. That dress, I later learned by overhearing Mom's hushed phone call, cost $1,800. College applications loomed that fall. I had worked relentlessly through high school, a meticulous 3.9 GPA, captain of the debate club, weekends spent volunteering at the local library. I was accepted to a state school 3 hours away with a partial academic scholarship. The rest, along with living expenses, would require loans. One evening, my father sat me down at the kitchen table. He explained, his gaze carefully avoiding mine, that they couldn't help with college costs. "Money's tight," he reiterated, the familiar refrain a bitter taste in my mouth. "We have our own retirement to think about." Vanessa, a year earlier, had enrolled at a prestigious private liberal arts school in New England, tuition a staggering $53,000 annually. Our parents covered every single penny: her apartment, her meal plan, her textbooks, even her extravagant spring break trips. When I dared to question this stark disparity, my mother grew defensive. "Vanessa earned a spot at a prestigious school," she said, still not meeting my eyes. "She worked hard for that opportunity. Your state school is more affordable, which makes sense for your situation." My situation? As if we weren't part of the same family, under the same roof, eating from the same fridge. So, I took out loans. I worked 2 campus jobs simultaneously, one at the library, another at the student center coffee shop. For years later, I graduated with a computer science degree and $28,000 in debt. I stayed in town, securing a job at a tech startup for $45,000 a year. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I rented a studio apartment, perpetually smelling faintly of mildew, furnished it with Facebook Marketplace finds, and began aggressively attacking my student loans. Vanessa, meanwhile, graduated and promptly moved back home. Her art history degree, apparently, wasn't opening doors in her field. My parents, however, were unfazed. Rent-free living, taking her time to find the right opportunity, they were fine with it. For 2 years, they funded a post-graduation trip to Europe, bought her a new laptop, and subsidized a professional wardrobe for interviews that, frustratingly, never seemed to materialize. I visited home less and less. Every visit inevitably spiraled into conversations about Vanessa's job search, Vanessa's dating life, Vanessa's whatever. Mom would ask me perfunctory questions about work, only to be distracted by her phone or a sudden, urgent need to call someone. Dad barely looked up from the television. I started making excuses. Work was busy, I had plans. Then, at 25, the startup I worked for was acquired. My stock options, once theoretical, suddenly meant something. Not enough to retire, but enough to make a significant dent in my loans and begin building real savings. I moved into a better apartment, one with functioning appliances and windows that didn't leak. I bought furniture that didn't hail from someone else's curb. I began investing, devouring everything I could about personal finance and wealth building. Vanessa, at 26, got engaged to Brandon, a sales guy who obsessed over his fantasy football league. Their engagement party at a vineyard an hour outside the city. My parents footed the entire bill, nearly $8,000, I later discovered. I wore a dress I'd bought on sale 3 years prior, smiled for photos, and drank more wine than I should have. The wedding, the following year, was a destination affair in Mexico. All expenses paid for the immediate family, by my parents, of course. I, however, had to cover my own flight and hotel because I wasn't in the wedding party. Vanessa had chosen her college roommates and Brandon's sisters. The beach ceremony at sunset was undeniably beautiful. The reception boasted an open bar, a 5-course meal, and fireworks exploding over the ocean. Mom wept during the father-daughter dance. Dad's speech droned on for 15 minutes, recounting Vanessa's entire life story as if she'd cured cancer, not merely gotten married. I sat at a table with distant cousins I barely knew, sipping mojitos until the bartender, in what felt like a personal insult, started watering them down. One cousin asked about my work. As I tried to explain software development, her eyes glazed over. "Are you seeing anyone?" she probed. No, I replied. She offered a sympathetic sigh, then swiftly changed the subject to Vanessa's dress, which, she informed me, had cost more than a used car. The wedding cost my parents $73,000. I knew this because I overheard Dad complaining to his brother about the credit card bills while we waited for the airport shuttle. Underneath the complaints, though, I detected a distinct note of pride, as if the sheer expense somehow validated his success as a father. I worked harder. At 28, I switched jobs for a significant raise. Again at 30 for another bump. I started freelancing on the side, building custom software solutions for small businesses. I invested every spare penny, lived well below my means, and pointedly ignored my mother's occasional comments about me getting too old to be so focused on career at the expense of finding a husband. Vanessa and Brandon bought a house when she was 29. A beautiful 4-bedroom colonial in a neighborhood with excellent schools, despite them having no children yet. The down payment, naturally, came from my parents. Mom posted approximately 47 photos on Facebook, meticulously documenting everything from the house hunting process to the closing day, to Vanessa arranging furniture in each room. The comments section overflowed with congratulations, heart emojis, and exclamations of how blessed they were. Nobody asked how I was doing. My life, it seemed, existed only in the margins of their awareness, barely worth acknowledging unless they needed something. Like the time Dad called, asking if I could figure out why his computer was running slow. I drove over that Saturday, spent 3 hours removing malware and updating software, and left before dinner because no one had thought to invite me to stay. I turned 31 without ceremony. I ate takeout sushi alone in my apartment, watching a documentary about the housing market crash. Around 9 p.m., a text from Mom, "Happy birthday, sweetie," with a single balloon emoji. Vanessa didn't text at all. By 32, I'd been promoted to senior developer, commanding a salary that would have seemed impossible a decade earlier. My student loans were entirely paid off. My investment portfolio had grown to a point where financial advisors began calling me. I started looking at houses, real houses, with yards and garages and rooms I didn't even have purposes for yet. I found the lake house by accident. Browsing real estate listings on my lunch break, mostly daydreaming. The listing popped up at the bottom of my search results, technically outside my specified range. 2 hours north. Right on the water, with a private dock and 3 acres of wooded land. The house itself was modest by modern McMansion standards, but it was exquisite. A wraparound porch, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake, an updated kitchen boasting those expensive appliances you see in magazine spreads. The listing price made me gasp, but I did the math. With my savings, my income, my credit score, I could actually afford it. I drove up that Saturday to see it. The real estate agent, Patricia, wore too much perfume and kept calling me honey in a way that might have been condescending if I cared enough to be offended. We toured the house, and I tried to maintain a poker face while internally screaming at its perfection. The master bedroom had a balcony overlooking the water. The kitchen featured a gas range and a double oven. There was an office with built-in bookshelves and a fireplace. The dock extended 30 feet into the water, complete with a boat lift that would stay with the property. Patricia mentioned the sellers were motivated, going through a divorce, wanting to close quickly. I nodded, feigning understanding of real estate intricacies, my heart hammering against my ribs. I made an offer that Monday. We went back and forth with counters for a week before settling on a number I could live with. The inspection revealed minor issues, nothing structural. I was approved for the mortgage within 2 weeks, which, based on Patricia's reaction, apparently surprised her. We closed 6 weeks after my first visit. I spent a month furnishing the place, taking long weekends to drive up with carloads of items purchased from actual furniture stores, not secondhand marketplaces. I hired someone to paint the living room a soft sage green, a shade that beautifully complemented the natural light. I bought real art for the walls, not posters from college. I set up the office with a standing desk and ergonomic chair because, having started working remotely, I could live anywhere with reliable internet. The lake house became my sanctuary. I'd drive up Friday evenings and spend weekends on the dock with my laptop, working when necessary, but mostly just existing in a space that was entirely mine. No memories of being overlooked. No reminders of what I didn't have. Just me, the water, and the quiet. I didn't tell my family. They hadn't asked about my life in months, and I saw no reason to volunteer information they wouldn't care about anyway. Mom occasionally posted generic, "Hope you're well," comments on my Facebook wall. Vanessa had unfollowed me at some point, though we remained technically friends. Dad never used social media, communicating exclusively through Mom, as if she were his personal secretary. 3 months after closing, I decided to post a photo. Just one, nothing elaborate. The view from my dock at sunset, golden light reflecting off the water, the house visible in the background, its windows glowing warm. My caption was simple, "Thanks for the motivation." I posted it at 8 p.m. on a Thursday and went to make dinner. By the time I finished eating, my phone had 17 notifications. I opened Facebook to find comments from extended family members, old high school acquaintances, former coworkers, everyone wanting to know where this was, whose house this was, what I was doing there. Mom called at 9:30. I let it go to voicemail. She called again 5 minutes later. And again. On the 4th call, I answered. "Whose house is that in your photo?" No greeting, no preamble. "Mine." Silence. On the other end, I could hear the television, some crime drama Dad always watched. "What do you mean, yours?" "I bought a house on a lake. That's the view from my dock." More silence. Then, "You bought a house. When? Where? How did you afford that?" "A few months ago. 2 hours north." "I have a job, remember? And savings." "You never mentioned you were looking at houses," Mom said, her voice laced with accusation, as if I had deliberately kept secrets to hurt her. "You never asked what I was doing." "Well, we just assumed you'd mention major life events," she retorted, getting defensive now. "We're your family. You should tell us these things." I almost laughed. Should tell them things? Like they told me about Vanessa's engagement party before I saw the Facebook photos? Like they mentioned planning her wedding before the invitation arrived in my mailbox? "Is it nice?" Mom asked, switching tactics. "How many bedrooms?" 3, plus an office. 2 bathrooms. About 1,800 square feet. That seems like a lot of space for one person. "It's what I wanted." Dad's voice echoed in the background, asking what was going on. Mom explained, her voice muffled as if she'd covered the phone. I waited, looking out my apartment window at the parking lot below. "Your father wants to know how much you paid." "That's personal. We're just curious. We're your parents. We want to know you're making smart financial decisions." The irony of them questioning my financial decisions after spending 6 figures on Vanessa's wedding and education nearly made me hang up. Instead, I took a breath. I'm making smart decisions. The house is within my budget. I can afford it comfortably. "We should come visit," Mom said suddenly. "See this place. Make sure you didn't get taken advantage of." "I'll think about it. I need to go now." "Wait, does Vanessa know? Have you told your sister?" "Good night, Mom." I hung up before she could respond. I turned off my phone and poured a glass of wine. I sat on my couch, feeling something between satisfaction and exhaustion. Vanessa texted the next morning. Multiple messages in rapid succession. "Mom says you bought a house. Why didn't you tell me? Can I see pictures? Is it near us?" I responded hours later, during my lunch break. "Yeah, bought a house. It's about 2 hours north. Pretty private." She sent back a string of questions about square footage, price, whether I had a boyfriend I'd been hiding. I answered the first, ignored the second and third. She pushed for more details. I kept my responses vague. The comments on Facebook continued. Distant relatives I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly acted interested in my life. Old classmates asking if I remembered them. Did they come visit? Mom's friends writing about how proud they must be. What an accomplishment. Such a beautiful place. Mom posted her own status the following day, so proud of my daughter purchasing her first home. "Both my girls are doing so well," followed by a red heart emoji. The comments section filled with congratulations and questions. Several people asked which daughter, since Mom posted about Vanessa constantly but rarely mentioned me. Mom didn't clarify, just liked comments indiscriminately. Dad called that weekend. This was unusual enough that I answered immediately, worried something was wrong. Your mother showed me the photos on the computer, he said. Nice place you got there. Thanks. Must have cost a pretty penny. It's manageable. We'd like to come see it sometime. Maybe bring Vanessa and Brandon. Make it a family thing. The word family, coming from his mouth, felt like a punchline to a joke only I understood. The place isn't really set up for guests yet, I lied. Maybe sometime later. Well, don't wait too long. You know how your mother gets when she feels left out. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. Left out as if I hadn't spent decades being left out of every celebration, every milestone, every moment that mattered. Sure, Dad, I'll let you know. Vanessa called that evening. I was at the lake house, sitting on the porch, watching the sunset over the water. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Why are you being so weird about this house? She asked immediately. It's like pulling teeth trying to get information from you. I'm not being weird. I'm just private about my life. Since when? We're sisters. The laugh that came out of me was harsh enough that Vanessa went quiet. We're sisters, I repeated. Right. Is that why you didn't text me on my birthday last year or the year before? Is that why you unfollowed me on social media? Is that why the last time we talked was at Christmas and you spent the entire time showing me photos of your house renovations without asking a single question about my life? That's not fair. I've been busy. Marriage is hard. Managing a house is stressful. You don't understand because you've been focused on your career. I've been focused on survival, I said quietly. There's a difference. What's that supposed to mean? Everything I'd kept inside for years wanted to come out. Every birthday that passed unacknowledged. Every celebration I'd watched from the sidelines. Every time Mom and Dad had chosen her comfort over my existence. Forget it, I said instead. The house is fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. You sound angry. I'm tired, Vanessa. I have to go. I hung up before she could respond. I blocked her number before she could call back. I turned off my phone and sat in the growing darkness, listening to the water lap against the dock. Mom called 3 times over the next week. She left voicemails that started apologetic and ended accusatory. How dare I shut them out? They were my family. They loved me. They'd always supported me. Why was I being so difficult? I saved the voicemails, but didn't respond. Something settled in my chest. Something that might have been peace or might have been resignation. Maybe both. The lake house became more than a weekend retreat. I started working from there full-time, only returning to my apartment when absolutely necessary. I applied for a permanent remote position within my company and got approved. I put the apartment up for lease termination. I moved my remaining belongings north over a series of weekends. 6 weeks later, I posted another photo. The living room this time, with the afternoon sun streaming through the windows, my coffee on the side table next to my laptop, the lake visible through the glass. Caption: home office vibes. Comments rolled in again. More questions, more distant relatives emerging from whatever rocks they'd been hiding under. Mom commented, beautiful. When can we visit? I deleted the comment. She posted it again. I deleted that one too. Vanessa sent a message through Facebook since I'd blocked her number. Why are you being like this? What did we do? I stared at those words for a long time. What did we do? As if she genuinely couldn't see it. Couldn't comprehend the years of being secondary, being forgettable, being the daughter who didn't matter enough to celebrate. I typed and deleted responses for an hour. Finally, I settled on, think about every birthday you had growing up. Now think about mine. If you still don't understand, then there's nothing I can say that will help. She read it immediately, but didn't respond. Hours passed. Then days. My phone stayed quiet. Mom posted a vague status 2 weeks later about ungrateful children who forget everything their parents sacrificed for them. She didn't name me specifically, but the timing was clear. Her friends commented with supportive platitudes about how hard parenting was, how children sometimes grew distant without reason, how she'd done her best, and that was all anyone could do. I screenshotted the post, saved it in a folder on my computer labeled receipts, and moved on with my life. Thanksgiving came around. Mom called in October to ask about my plans. I said I wasn't sure yet. She asked if I'd be coming home. I said probably not. She got quiet, then asked if this was about the house situation. There is no house situation, I said. I bought a house. You're acting like I committed a crime. We're not acting like anything. We just feel shut out of your life. Now you know how that feels. I hung up before she could respond. I spent Thanksgiving alone at the lake house, making a small turkey breast and watching football on my laptop. It was the most peaceful holiday I'd remembered having in years. Christmas brought a card in the mail. A generic winter scene on the front. Mom's handwriting inside, "We miss you. Whatever we did, we're sorry. Love, Mom and Dad." No specifics, no acknowledgement of anything concrete, just a blanket apology that meant nothing because it came without understanding. I put the card in the recycling bin and made myself hot chocolate. January marked a year since I bought the lake house. I posted a photo of the view in winter, the lake partially frozen, snow covering the dock and trees. Caption, 1 year here. Best decision I ever made. The comments were different this time. Fewer questions, more genuine congratulations from people who had been following the journey. A former coworker wrote about how inspiring it was to see someone build their own happiness. A college friend commented about how peaceful the place looked. Mom commented, "We raised you to be independent. Glad to see you're doing well." I stared at that comment for a full minute. We raised you to be independent, like that was what they'd done. Like the neglect had been intentional character building rather than simply not caring enough to try. I deleted the comment. I blocked her on Facebook. I blocked Dad's account too, even though he never used it. I blocked Vanessa's account, Brandon's account, anyone connected to that part of my life. My phone rang an hour later. Unknown number. I answered, curious. "You blocked your mother on Facebook." Dad's voice, angrier than I'd ever heard it. "What the hell is wrong with you?" "I'm setting boundaries." "You're being a brat. We're your parents. You don't get to block us like we're strangers. You treated me like a stranger for most of my life. I'm just returning the favor." "That's ridiculous. We gave you everything." And there it was. The fundamental disconnect, the canyon between their perception and reality. "You gave Vanessa everything," I corrected. "You gave me leftovers. There's a difference. We treated you both equally." I laughed. Actually laughed. "Dad, you spent $73,000 on Vanessa's wedding. You paid for her college completely. You bought her a car. You gave her the down payment for her house. You threw her elaborate birthday parties while I got Olive Garden if I was lucky. You didn't treat us equally. You didn't even treat us like we were part of the same family." Silence on the other end. I could hear him breathing. I could imagine him standing in the kitchen, trying to formulate an argument. "We did what we could afford at different times," he said, finally. "You rented a ballroom for Vanessa's sweet 16 4 months after telling me we couldn't afford a birthday cake. Don't insult my intelligence by pretending it was about money. Vanessa was always more social. She needed those things. And I needed to feel like I mattered. But we don't always get what we need, do we?" "You're being dramatic." "I'm being honest. Maybe for the first time. And you can't handle it because it means admitting you failed. You failed as parents. At least with me. Maybe you succeeded with Vanessa, I don't know. But you failed me. And instead of acknowledging that, you're calling me a brat. You will not speak to me that way. Then don't call me. Lose this number. Tell Mom to stop leaving voicemails. Tell Vanessa I wish her well, but I'm done pretending we're a functional family. I'm done accepting crumbs and pretending I'm full. You're going to regret this. The only thing I regret is not doing it sooner." I hung up, turned off my phone, and sat on my porch, wrapped in a blanket, watching the winter sun reflect off the frozen lake. I cried for the first time in months. Not sad tears, exactly. More like release, like something I'd been carrying for decades finally breaking loose and flowing out of me. My phone stayed off for 3 days. When I turned it back on, there were voicemails from Mom, more Facebook messages from Vanessa, even a message from Brandon asking if I was okay. I deleted all of them without listening or reading. I changed my number the following week. I updated it with my employer, my bank, my important contacts. I didn't give it to my family. Life continued. I worked, saved money, invested wisely. I made friends in the small town near the lake house. People who knew me as Rachel, The quiet woman who'd bought the Henderson place and fixed it up nicely. They didn't know about my family, about the history. I was just Rachel, who worked in tech and liked kayaking in the summer. Spring arrived. I posted a photo of the dock at sunrise. The lake smooth as glass. Early morning mist rising off the water. No caption, just the image. Comments came in from my carefully curated friend list. People I actually knew who actually cared. Nobody asking invasive questions or demanding access to my life. Just genuine appreciation for a beautiful moment. My life became smaller and simultaneously larger. Fewer people, but the connections were real. I dated occasionally, nothing serious. I focused on my career. I got another promotion, another substantial raise. I started a savings account specifically for future renovations, maybe adding a guest house or a screened-in porch. The lake house appreciated in value. Market conditions shifted in my favor, and I watched my equity grow. I refinanced at a better rate, started paying down principal aggressively. The house that had seemed like such a stretch 3 years ago now felt comfortable, manageable, mine in a way nothing else ever had. I was 35 when I posted the last photo. 5 years after buying the lake house, a full decade since I'd stopped expecting anything from my family. The photo showed the view from the newly added porch extension, complete with outdoor furniture and string lights. The sun was setting, painting everything golden pink. Caption: 5 years in paradise. Built it myself. The double meaning was intentional. The porch, yes, but also the life, the peace, the knowledge that I was enough, had always been enough, regardless of whether my family recognized it. Someone I didn't recognize commented, "Your family must be so proud." I smiled and deleted the comment. Whether they were proud didn't matter anymore. I was proud. And in the end, that was the only opinion that counted. The lake stretched out before me, reflecting the sunset like molten copper. Somewhere, my parents were probably eating dinner in front of the television. Somewhere, Vanessa was living her subsidized life without ever questioning whether she deserved it. Somewhere, Brandon was talking about fantasy football to anyone who would listen. And here, 2 hours north, in a house I'd bought with money I'd earned, I was exactly where I needed to be. The motivation they provided through years of neglect had transformed into something they never intended. Actual success. Actual happiness. Actual peace. I raised my glass to the sunset, to the journey, to the girl who'd blown out a candle on a single slice of cheesecake and wished to be anywhere else. She'd finally made it. We'd finally made it. And we'd done it completely on our own.